Visit Sayorite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions.
Hi, I'm Eric Grant from Sayorite. In this tutorial video, we're going to show you how to make a traditional boxed cushion. This box cushion has a continuous boxing. It doesn't have seams at the corner. And when you reach the zipper at the back, the zipper wraps around the corner and tucks into the boxing. This cushion can have piping, or it can be designed without piping. We have a separate video which highlights 7 different techniques to make a cushion. It should help you make an educated decision on which approach works best for your desired results. Click the link in the upper right-hand corner or in the description below to watch.
Here are some of the key features of this cushion. Making a traditional box cushion with continuous boxing is the old tried and true method of making cushions. However, it is slightly more labor intensive when compared to the newer, quick and easy, or 30-minute box corner cushion approach. That being said, it has some advantages that the other newer approaches can't achieve. First, piping can be utilized, and secondly, an irregularly shaped cushion can easily be made. The first step in making this cushion is using the Sayorite fabric calculator and cutting the fabric to size.
We're going to go to the Sayorite fabric calculator and determine the appropriate size to make it and how much materials and supplies that you need to buy from Sayorite. Let's get started.
You can find this calculator at the Sayorite website. Click on Cushions, then click on Box Cushions. Enter your fabric's width. Then you can enter the size of cushion that you desire. Boxing length has to do with seamed or continuous. Click the question mark if you'd like to read more about that. We're going to be making a continuous boxing, so make sure that's clicked, then click the Add Cushion button. Scroll down to the rendering and panels can be moved for better nesting. You'll also see plate sizes on the plates and boxing sizes on the boxing strips. Boxing strips can be rotated and sliced if they're too long. We'll rotate this one so it's horizontal, and we'll rotate the zipper plaque so it's horizontal to save on fabric. And you'll notice that one of them is too long, so we'll slice it there, and we'll have to sew a section together to make it to the correct length. So we only need 1 yard of fabric for this size cushion.
So I'm using the clear acrylic ruler to mark our fabric to size. The fabric is usually a ½ inch larger in both dimensions as the desired finished size.
This video will cover everything, but if you'd like a list of what we're going to do, here it is. The fabric that we've selected has a random pattern, so we don't have to worry about pattern matching. If you've chosen a fabric that has a pattern that you'd like to match, we recommend that you go back to the fabric calculator, and where you enter the width of the fabric, scroll down and you'll see 2 videos, one a quick start and the other one an advanced user guide. In the advanced video, it'll explain how to do pattern matching and much more.
I'm going to use the Sayorite tempered cutting glass on the bottom side, and I'm going to cut this fabric with a hot knife to keep the edges from unraveling. You don't have to cut it with a hot knife. You could actually cut it with scissors. The edges that will be unraveling will obviously be on the inside of our cushion, or you could use pinking shears, which helps prevent unraveling. So we're using the Sayorite Edge hot knife. This is the cordless version. So I'm just using the plate we just cut as a template for the next or bottom plate. And I'm using decorative fabric for the bottom, though you could use a cushion underlining if you don't want your cushion to be flippable. And we're going to cut around this with a hot knife. So I have my 2 plates cut out. We really should talk about what type of material we're using. This is 100% Shushan dyed acrylic fabric. It's the brand is Outdura. It's an upholstery fabric that's excellent for outdoor and indoor applications. Very UV resistant, very stain resistant, and very water resistant. It doesn't look like this has a right side or a wrong side, but I do notice that the underside looks a little bit different than the top. So I'll probably be careful to make sure that the same sides are out.
If you go back to the fabric calculator, you can see the width of the zipper plaque boxing and the regular boxing here.
So the Sayorite fabric calculator tells me the width of the boxing is 3.5 inches and I need 61 inches of it. So I only had a yard to work with, so what I have to do is I have to get 61 inches, I have to use this, which is 54 inches, and add this piece on. I know that's not continuous. If you wanted a true continuous cushion, you would have more fabric and you just run it down the length of the fabric instead of seaming it. But this is a great way to save on fabric. For the zipper plaque, the fabric calculator said to cut it to 4.75 or 4 3/4 inches and to cut it a specific width. And that's what I've done here.
Our plates are cut, our boxing is cut, and our zipper plaque. Let's start with the zipper.
We're going to start with the construction of the zipper plaque. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to take some scissors and I'm going to notch it here. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on this side. So we're going to draw a line from notch to notch so that we can split this in half down the center, and I will use a hot knife for that.
So the zipper plaque boxing is cut in half.
This is our number 5 coil zipper. It has no teeth on the bottom, and the teeth you can see are protruded here. What we're going to do is we're going to put double-sided tape on the flange on both sides. This is a 1/4 inch seam stick for canvas and upholstery. It is an acrylic base glue, so it doesn't yellow over time. About the perfect stickiness for applications like this. The zipper is about 1 inch or so longer than my zipper plaque length. We're going to peel off our transfer paper, revealing the glue on one side only. And this is the outside surface if your fabric has an outside surface. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it, I'm going to just have it go over the edge a little bit and just baste it down right along this, and I'm going to be careful not to pull on the zipper.
The flange of the zipper is even with the edge of the cut fabric. The ends are a little bit long.
Now I'll flip this, and in an effort to keep from sewing this twice, I'm just going to put double-sided tape on the fabric side. You can see the zippers on the bottom side there, all along this edge, and I'll show you what's next. Peel off the paper, revealing the glue. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold this, and this is where you want to be a little bit more precise. I'm going to fold this so that the fold's right in the center of the zipper's teeth like that. So we're going to do this all the way down its length. Now if you had a really big cushion, you might want to take it over and sew this side on, but this one's pretty small, so I'm going to go ahead and stick the other side on in the same manner. It's done just about the same way. This is outside surfaces, so now the outside surface would face down. Okay, the only thing that we have to do when we baste this is make sure that this edge and this edge are lined up. I'm going to put double-sided tape here. So I put double-sided tape on this side. Now when you're done with this, this should equal the same width as your regular boxing, which for us is 3.5 inches. So let's baste this down, and before we go any farther, let's check it. Oh yeah, 3.5 inches. We're going to put the needle in the right position to get closer to the zipper's teeth. We've also want to set up the machine to about a 4 millimeter, 5 millimeter straight stitch, which it is. And I'm going to sew to this side of the presser feet, so the stitch is about a 1/4 inch from the teeth. And I want to ride right along those the tooth, I should say. No reason to do any reversing. I'm going to kind of use the pattern as a guide too, to make sure that I don't deviate. I'm going to do that down this side, and then we'll flip it and do the other side. Okay, once we're done with that side, I'm going to sew this on the same side of the presser foot. That way my stitch is the same, and all I need to do is just flip it and start from the other end.
In the next chapter, we're going to add a little bit to the length of the continuous boxing. Then we're going to join the end of it to the end of the zipper plaque boxing.
This is our continuous strip, and we do have a selvage edge. I'm just going to cut that off. You can leave it on if you want, but why?
Wait a minute, aren't we making continuous boxing? Why are we sewing a piece to it? Well, we're trying to save on fabric.
Okay, you could put double-sided tape there, but this is easy to do. Outside surfaces would face each other, which they do, and I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch seam right here. I'm going to put the magnetic guide on the 1/2 inch of the needle plate for the Ultrapete LSC. Make sure that the needle is in center position, and do a little bit of reversing here at the beginning and the end. No reason to do a top stitch for this. I'm going to cut off the selvage edge here as well. This is a little bit on the long side. Now I'm going to take my zipper plaque and I'm going to cut the zipper so that it's flush, like that. And then this gets placed over the top of that, and we sew a 1/2 inch here and we do some reversing in the zipper. Make sure outside surfaces are facing each other. A little bit of reversing there. Sew through my teeth, and this is a coil zipper. We're going to do reversing over the teeth just to make sure that's locked in well. And we'll do some reversing here. It's pretty easy to sew through a coil zipper. If it were a molded tooth zipper, you'd have to be careful about sewing through the teeth. Okay, this is what we just sewed. We're going to open this up, and I am going to mark 1 inch to 1.5 inches. I'll probably just do 1 1/4 inch right there, which would come down right there. And this will create a fold for the zipper to zip into. Okay, so we basically just fold it over there. The zipper slider will zip right into there. And I'm going to go take this to the machine and just tack it down so that it stays in place, so I don't have to worry about this fold later on. Now I don't want to sew this at a 1/2 inch because this is basically just a tacking stitch, so I'm sewing very close to the edge. We're just going to tack it here and on the other side like that. That way I never have to worry about it. And then I'll do the same thing over here. All right, don't forget to put the slider on. Take your zipper, separate it by a couple inches, then take your slider and slide it on the end. Match up the 2 edges as best as possible. Push with this finger until you hear a pop. And now what you want to do is take that slider and put it somewhere in the middle and leave it there.
In this chapter, we're going to add a prefabricated piping, which is completely optional.
We're going to add piping. You don't have to add piping, but we're going to show the process of it. And we're going to use a prefabricated piping. So I fold the assembly in half. This is the back edge. That's what I've determined. And I'll put a little triangle cut to indicate where the center is. Okay, so here's our prefabricated piping. This is a vinyl piping called Eversoft, available from Sarah. I want to open up the end of the piping so that I can insert the other end when it gets time to join them together. And so I need to separate the glue. So sometimes what I do is I use a seam ripper and I just kind of do that and try to separate them. It is glued together well, but once I get it started, and you might ruin a little bit of it, once you get it started, it's not that hard to separate. So let's see if I can get this now. Yeah, see? So now I can kind of put the seam ripper in the middle here and do that. When I get a when I get it open enough, it's easier to pull out. I don't want to pull on the cording because I'll just pull it out from the sleeve. But you can see that I'm slowly separating it. I'm going to do this a little bit more and then I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay, so we got it opened up about 2 inches or so. I'm going to cut out about 1 inch of the piping, right, like that. And what I want to do now is I'm going to put basting tape on the entire perimeter of the plate. And I'm going to pre-baste this in place. Now you don't have to do this, but it makes it easy for people that have not sewn a lot of cushions. So we're going to put it on all 4 sides. This 1/4 inch seam stick for canvas and upholstery is an acrylic base glue, not a rubber base glue like most double-sided tape, so it doesn't yellow over time. And it's got the appropriate stickiness for upholstery applications like this. Okay, there we go. So the back side has the notch in it. Where is that notch? Right here it is. So that's where we're going to start. So I'm going to peel off the transfer paper, revealing the double-sided tape. We want to take this where the piping begins, which is right there, and put that right over the notch, because that's going to be where it's joined together. So we left the fabric in place, but the piping is right across from the notch. And all I'm going to do, this has little notches in it already, so we'll work it around the perimeter and stick it down, and then I'm going to stick my boxing to it as well. And that way everything's stuck in place while we take it to the machine and sew. So I peel off that side. What you want to do at the corners is you want to make a corner that is pleasing to you. Since this has little slits in it, I can almost make a 90-degree corner just by doing that. And if you wanted to make it a little bit different, you can do that. But that's what we're going to do all the way around the perimeter. Okay, we're back to the starting point, and I base this down, and I basically want to cut this right flush with this. So there, that should be flush with the end of the cording, like that. So since this is a vinyl, all I'm going to do is I'm going to just straighten this out a little bit with my scissors, so I have a nice straight edge. And then this just folds over. If it were a woven fabric, I'd create a hem there, but a vinyl doesn't usually unravel. So there is my joint.
We'll be basting the boxing to the flange of the piping. If you don't have piping, you just baste it to the edge of the plate.
Okay, we're going to pre-baste everything, making it easier, so we just sew it. So I'm going to put double-sided tape very close to the edge, keeping it away from the piping because I don't want this double-sided tape to show up. And this will actually hold this in place as well when I baste over the top of it. There we go. We're going to go all the way around the perimeter. This is the back side. That's where it joins together. So we want the zipper to be in the back. We have plenty of zipper. Now you need to determine where do you want this to end. Usually I like it to end going back around the side of the cushion. Makes it easier for insertion of foam. For such a small cushion like that, it's not super important, but I think I'm going to just put it right about there. And then when we reach the other end, we'll have to join it together. So I'm going to peel off the transfer paper on the glue and go around this corner. I'm actually going to start here so I can position that where I want it. It looks like it's about an inch, inch and a quarter from the corner. And I baste it to this. Now, I'm going to move this over because I need to cut a little notch in this. So I'm going to put the outside surfaces need to face each other. But to round that corner, it's almost a 90-degree corner, not quite. But at the corner, I need to put a little slit in this, maybe a couple, like that. That'll help it to take this turn. So right here, I just went totally around it like this. I don't have to worry about pattern matching for this. The pattern's so random. But you could pattern match this way with the double-sided tape. That double-sided tape makes it easy for that. And now I have to join the two ends together at some point. So I'm going to round this corner, but we're going to have to probably unbaste it when we have to sew those together. I'm just going to make one notch here. Looks like this stuff's going around the corner pretty nicely. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I got to peel off the transfer paper. And we're going to start basting around this way. And when I come to here, I'll show you what we're going to do. I'm measuring where this pocket is, and I can feel it here. And it looks like it's around 2 inches. I want that to be about the same over here. So I'm just going to mark my fabric here at 2 inches. So there's our notch. One of the easiest things to do is actually just transfer this over to the flange of the piping, which I've already marked with a pencil. I don't mark on the piping, I mark on the flange. Then I peel this back. Then I take this piece and I go all the way up to that mark, and then I create a fold going backwards like that. Once this is folded, if we remember right, we need, this overlap is 1.5 inches. I think it is. Anyway, it's whatever this reads. And all I need to do is basically just transfer that over here and put a mark on my fabric. And I need to cut that off. I'm going to cut it with scissors because this is going to be on the inside of the cushion, and I want to cut it so that it's perpendicular to the cut edge of the boxing. So that's my overlap. And then this would be basted to this, and all I need to do is mark it where it's coming in contact right there. So right here, and I'll cut that off as well. So now if you notice here, this is over here, this comes around the corner, and all I need to do is sew them at a 1/2 inch right here, these two assemblies. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to show that with this sewing. I'm not going to show it because we already showed it over there. Okay, so now that it's sewn in, all you got to do is fold this under and baste it to the edge. So it's, see that fold right there? I hope you can see it. There, we also have that extra fabric in the way, so it kind of makes it look bulky. But that's what to do. Okay, we're going to sew this around the perimeter. Now you want to check the bottom side to make sure that everything still stayed basted together, because we did a little bit of work with it. So I'm just checking that before I start sewing. And I'm going to start sewing where this is folded since it's not tacked down. That way I don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to lay that down flat, and we're just going to put it in the machine. We have a cording tunnel that's built into this machine. Got to lift my foot a little bit to get it under there, right there. And put the foot down, and we should be able to feel the piping, and we just want to start sewing around the perimeter. And I'll show you what we do when we get to a corner. We got to make sure the bottom is lined up. There we go. We're almost to this corner. I'm kind of feeling the piping as I go, making sure it's in the tunnel. Make sure you don't sew through this. I pull it out a little bit. Okay, there, my needle's buried. My needle's coming up slightly so I don't get a skip stitch. I lift my foot, I pivot. This is not quite a 90-degree turn, so I might have to make a few stitches instead of just turning 90 degrees. There we go. And we sew down this side. We're going to do this all the way around. Okay, we're coming to the last corner and where we began sewing here. And I'm just going to turn that corner. And then we're going to sew over our previous stitches by about 1 inch or so. And then just do some reversing in the flange a little bit. In other words, in the seam allowance, I should say. And we are done. We have our piping sewn on completely, but you really should turn it right side out and inspect it and make sure that it looks good. If the stitch is too far from the piping, you can always go back to the sewing machine and put another stitch in right beside the stitch or even on top of it. And you want to check your corners. If it looks good, just leave it turned wrong side out, which is this way, because that's the side that's going to have to face our next plate.
Sewing the assemblies together is next. If you'd like to add piping, baste it onto the bottom plate and follow the procedure that's shown now.
So we need to find the corner, and all I can sight down it and I can basically tell where that corner is. It's directly across from there. I'm going to pinch the fabric and I'm going to cut a small triangle at that corner, and I'll do that to all 4 corners. I'm going to peel off the transfer paper to at least the corners, and then I'm going to take this, and since we've cut a little notch at the corner right there, that corner basically just falls right there, and we're going to baste it around the perimeter here. So let's start it with that. So that should fall at the corner like it is, and I'll baste this side on. We have a fold here, but this one's tacked down, so I don't have to worry about it. The one on the other side is not tacked down. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to baste this side down in the same manner. And basting it in advance like this means that you can make adjustments. I'm going to try to keep my hands out of the way. So if I find that one of my corners is off, then I can pull it up and rebaste it again. Try not to pull or stretch things unless you're obviously trying to shrink something up, because you can shrink up stuff if it's off a little bit. So let's see if this one's going to hit. So peel that up. And it looks like, oh, it's going to hit nicely. So I'm going to just baste this down, and we're going to go all around the perimeter like this, and then we're going to sew it in the same manner. So I saved this corner for the last one. This is where that fold is that we didn't tuck in. What you should do is you should walk this corner all the way to the point where it wants to fold and still have enough fabric for this side. So you basically create the right amount of fabric just by seaming this down and finding the point where it tucks in there and you have no excess fabric. So that's actually perfect right there. Folds right there. We're going to put our magnetic guide at a 1/2 inch on the needle plate. Needle's in center position, and all we need to do is basically just sew around the perimeter. I'm going to start sewing anywhere, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to do any reversing. When I reach that stitch point again, I'll sew over it by a couple inches and probably do a little bit of reversing there. So I'm going to sew up to this corner, and I'm going to make sure don't have any extra fabric there. I can feel that I only have one layer. I'm going to stop at a 1/2 inch, which is right about there. Needle comes up a little bit so I don't get a skip stitch. I pivot on the needle. There's no piping on this one. And I pull my fabric back so I'm not going to sew through it. Turn my assembly around, make sure I'm not sewing through any excess fabric, lower my foot, and sew down this side, and we're going to do that at all the corners. Okay, we're just rounding our last corner, and as I talked about at the beginning, we're going to sew into these stitches. Hopefully we're going to be right on top of them. Yeah, we are. And then I just actually go off into the flange and I do a little bit of reversing there because nobody's going to see that. And we are done.
Cutting the foam to size is next. Refer back to the Sayrite fabric calculator and you can see the size of foam that you need to cut for your particular cushion size.
I've marked my foam to size with a permanent marker, and you can use an electric kitchen knife that you use to carve a turkey for Thanksgiving, or you can use a Sayrite blade foam saw, which makes almost a perfectly vertical cut. We'll start with demonstrating the Sayrite blade foam saw.
We're using Cushionrite premium foam. It is a high density foam, which means you can use it heavily and it will last for years without bottoming out.
Nice cut. For this approach, what I do is I usually use the edge of a sacrificial table so that I can hold my blade straight, and I line the line up with the table and put a weight on top.
If you plan on using your cushion occasionally, consider Cushionrite standard foam. It is a medium density foam. In short, if the foam is used heavily, the higher the density, the longer the life of the foam, while indentation force deflection, or IFD, has to do with how soft or firm the foam is when sat upon. And the last chapter, inserting the foam in the cover.
We're going to open up our zipper. You can just kind of pull it from in front of the slider, open it to there, and pull the slider back, and we're going to turn it right side out. Make sure you work out the corners. So put your fingers in the corners and make sure that they look good. And then we're going to stuff the foam in next. Okay, we're going to insert the foam, and you could use a silk film in a shop vac to suck it down, and but you don't have to. I'm not doing that. This I'm going to probably show in triple time because it does take some time to do it. Now it's always necessary to massage the foam and get the corners and edges in the right spot, which I've pretty much done already. Now it's time to zip it up. So here's our slider, and sometimes you have to pull the ends. I'm going to try to do this so the camera can see it like that. It's a snug fit. We designed it that way. And there's our little pocket that the slider zips into. So look at that. That's nice. And we'll do our final massaging. And we are done with our cushion. We have piping on this side and no piping on this side.
Coming up next is the materials and tools list that we use to make this traditional box cushion with continuous boxing. You can find thousands of decor and upholstery fabrics at Sayrite. We used Outdura, 100% solution-dyed acrylic upholstery fabric, excellent for indoor and outdoor applications. This video is part of a set of 6 tutorials showing different techniques to sew cushions. Click on the playlist to see others. If you have any questions about the materials or the tools that we used, be sure to give us a call or email us. We're glad to help. I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.